And welcome back, students. We are going to continue working with our HTML document that we started last time. If you closed out of this document and you just opened Dreamweaver, this is not here. If, like, let's say you come back to this screen, let's go ahead and just reopen that by going up here to File. We can do an Open Recent, and it should bring up our last web page that we worked with. So here it is. All right. We haven't really done much with it before, so now we're actually going to do some stuff with it. Now, as we go through these, we are going to want to create different web pages, and we're going to be making different web pages. But just for the purpose of this modeling example, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then I'm going to kind of show you how I want you to make the actual exercises that you're going to end up submitting. So let's look at this first one here, and I want to introduce a couple new elements here. The first one, of course, is going to be the heading element. Now, before I get into the headings and heading sizes, I want us to kind of focus here on one little thing, which is called indentation. Indentation is a technique that's really helpful for sorting through the different layers of Adobe Dreamweaver. So let's just kind of come over here to our little notes that we had, and this is going to be for exercise 1. Right? So indentation, this is the, if I can spell indentation right, there we go, process of indenting code for easier viewing. Okay? And what I mean by that is that you could technically write all your code on one line, but it's not really advisable. Right? I could technically put all this all on line 1. Not advisable because it's going to be really hard to sort out what's what. And if I put everything all here flush against the end of this, it actually kind of makes it a little bit harder for me to view. Like right now, I have all this inside the head. Technically, I could take these two elements here, tab those over, and it would make it a lot easier to see, because what that tells me then is that these elements right here are part of the head. Now, we don't necessarily need to do that with the head and the body, but we're going to do it here with our code that we're adding because it makes it easier to view. All right, so again, the first thing we're going to jump into is a heading. Now, I'm going to do an H1 tag, and I'm going to hit enter. And you see when I hit enter, it automatically makes a new line. So let's save our document and go ahead and define a little bit about those headings. So the H1 tag is going to be a heading of size 1. Similarly, an H2 tag will be a heading size 2. Right. Now you might think, oh, smaller the number, the smaller the size. It's actually backwards with HTML. So when we start this so with our heading tags, so heading size tags go from size 1 up to size 8. And what we need to know is the smaller the number, the larger the font. And we'll see that here in a second here. I'll show you what that means. Okay. So heading size tags go from size 1 all the way up to size 8. So in here I have H1, and I'm just going to put my first heading. Okay. And so in H1 it says my first heading. Now I'm going to hit enter below that, and I'm going to define our next element, which is a paragraph. And I'm going to have this say my first paragraph. Now, we could, of course, clean this up. I could technically put this all on one line like this because it is a pretty simple snippet of code to do. And you can see that has no effect upon how the website is actually made. So if I look at my live view, it has no bearing upon that. I'm just going to go ahead and clean these up simply because these are pretty easy code pieces to look at, so I don't really have to necessarily hit enter to indent them around. One thing you will notice though is hitting enter here has no effect upon the layout here. So like if I hit enter here, it has no effect. Similarly, if I added a bunch of spaces in, hit save, refresh, no effect. Even if I go out and look at the actual page that I've made before, you can see that it has zero effect on it. And that's because the way HTML works, actual white spaces, which are spaces, enter, tab, stuff like that, have no effect beyond the initial counter of it. So HTML kind of ignores extra white spacing. If we want to do things like have an enter happen, there's ways of doing that. Right? So here's my first sample web page. I have a header of size 1 and I have a paragraph. Right? So let's go ahead and define quick that term, since we did create another one. So exercise 1, and we have the paragraph tag. All right, let's keep going here. All right, at this point now, we've gone and created our first web page. So let's go to File, Save All, so we save everything. And if we come back and view our web page, hit refresh, you can see this is here. All right. Now, there's one more thing I'm going to show you how to do, which is a very basic thing, which is creating a link. All right. So in here, I'm going to go below my paragraph tag, and I'm going to show you the format of creating a link. So if I'm going to create a link, I always started with A, which stands for anchor, href, and you'll see that Dreamweaver is trying to be helpful and suggest what that code is supposed to be. I'm going to hit equals and hit quote URL, right? Because that's what I want to type in there. Close that off. Put in the link text, and then you can see that HTML. The Dreamweaver has automatically closed off that little bit of HTML. Now, what this means is two things. Right? This URL piece is the actual URL. So that's the full HTTP www.whatever.com, .net, .org, whatever. The link text is what you actually see on the web page. So let's go ahead and break this down just a little bit in our notes here. So the A tag, right? This is short for anchor tag. Right? And for our purposes, this will be used to start a link. Then we have href. Right? Href is pretty much a hypertext reference. So this is to reference the file that will be the URL the link is going to. And the reason why I say a file is because ultimately every web page is a file and you're just viewing that file. So when we want to go and look at a document at, let's say, google.com, we're pulling up the file for google.com. If I want to look at another web page that I made, then it would be, exercise1.html, that sort of thing. So for our purposes, for what we're going to start with, we're just going to do something simple. Now, I also want to break down in here the quote URL. This is the HTTPS or HTTP file location, right? And the reason why I say HTTP or HTTPS is you have to have those in there. You can't just put google.com. It's not going to work. It only works like that. Like if you have a local file, you can put like index.html. It'll work okay, as long as it knows where that file's at. If it's in the same file location. Otherwise, you're going to need that full file path there. So let me go ahead and just do a little bit more here. So exercise 1. Okay. We also need to talk, of course, about the link text. This is what the user actually views for the link on the web page. So let's take a look at this example here and actually turn it into a link. So if I go ahead and save this right now, and I go out to my page and refresh, you can see I have a link here. If I click on it though, I get a file not found error, and that's because in here inside Dreamweaver, it does not know what URL is. It doesn't know. So I need to go and change that to an actual web page. So for our purposes, let's just use our good old friend google.com. Now, I don't put google.com because if I just put google.com, so let's just try putting that in here, google.com, okay, and I go back to my page, refresh, click it, I still get a file not found error, even though we know google.com exists. And that's because I need this full URL up here. So what I do is I click up here, I'm going to right click, I'm going to choose copy, I'm going to go back to Dreamweaver, I'm going to select this text, delete it out of there, and I will Control V to paste. Now you can see I have the full file path, https www.google.com. So let's go back to here, hit refresh, click on link text. Right. Notice it didn't work, and that's because we did not save. All right. So right here, see how it says the star? The star means that this has not saved. So if you start having trouble, like why isn't my web page working? Check to make sure that you've saved your file. So let's go ahead and do that, file save all. Now if I come back here, refresh my page, click on link text, it takes me out to google.com. So we are doing great. Now, one thing I do want to note to you that where it says link text, you don't just want to leave that as link text. You want to have that be generally something that's going to describe what you're doing with that link. So this could say, like, for example, link to google.com. And you can see that our web page will update for that. Now, later on, we'll get into some other things that you should be doing with links. But for now, this is a basic setup for a web page. Okay. So that's going to conclude what we're going to do for today, folks. You're going to have an exercise now. You're going to make your own sample page, and you're going to maybe have a couple questions. One thing I do want to note, though, you're not going to keep working with this. This is kind of our play around page here, index.html, for the purpose of our web page. For the exercise, you're going to come up here, you're going to go File, New, you're going to choose HTML, and you're going to call this Exercise 1. You're going to click Create, and you're going to have a brand new web page to start with here. All right. And in the actual exercise directions for what you're going to submit, you will submit in that file then. So that concludes everything I have for you today. Until next time.